Who is the most important player in the Big 12 in 2025? For the 2025 football season, who is the most important player? I think my number one will surprise you and may upset some people. We'll see when we get there. It'll be a journey because not only do I have a top 5 for you, but I've got an honorable mention. Or if we're going Dan Le Batard show style here, it would be an OLI list, outside looking in. Here's the honorable mention. Jordan Tyson, receiver at Arizona State. This kid is fabulous. I still have nightmares about what he did to K-State in Manhattan. He had 1,100 yards, 75 catches, 10 touchdowns last year. And a part of the reason that he makes this list as one of, it'd be one of the top 10 most important players in the Big 12 is because he's going to have to shoulder a little bit more of the offensive importance without Cam Scadaboo. Now, does that mean you necessarily have to have more than 1,100 yards? Because that's already like just a very, very healthy, incredible season. Maybe not necessarily. But teams will definitely be more dialed in on him this year. So the productivity may be down, but he'll be just as important or more important a part of the offense. And he's going to have to find ways to get open when a lot more is probably going to be designed around stopping him. Unless they prove that they can fill somebody else in, plug somebody else in the backfield that will be as impactful as Scadaboo, but that seems doubtful. A lot will be on Jordan Tyson this year. David Bailey, defensive end at Texas Tech, edge rusher, I guess. Edge, I'll call him an edge at Texas Tech. He just transferred from Stanford. He was in the top 40 of the top 150 players in the country, according to CBS Sports, one of the highest ranked Big 12 players. Tech really boosted their pass rush in the portal this year. Splashed around a ton of money to do it, and David Bailey might be the crowning jewel of that. So I'm going to have him be the representation of what Tech did there. I mean, if they can just overwhelm teams with their pass rush led by Bailey, that's going to be a massive advantage this year. You want to be great at like getting to the quarterback and your own quarterback. And Texas Tech, I mean, I think they're certainly more talented at getting to the quarterback than they are actually at the quarterback position. So this could be really, really big for their odds to win the Big 12 title and maybe do some damage in the playoff. I mean, they've got a roster that's talented enough where it sure seems like that would be the upside. All right, I need to get moving here. Honorable mention, Jordan Seaton, Colorado, offensive tackle. So Colorado is not going to have just a miracle worker quarterback anymore who can run for his life and still make a bunch of plays. That being Shedeur Sanders. I think they could still have a good to very good quarterback in Caden Salter from Liberty, or maybe if it's going to be Juju Lewis already, but they better get some protection from their blind side, which makes the former 5-star recruit Jordan Seaton all the more important. I'm going to put him on the list. And just outside making this list, I've got Jake Retzlaff of BYU. Very important quarterback. 4 of the top 5, I will spoil it for you, are QBs. Jake Retzlaff was close to being in this group, but just because I feel like BYU didn't rely on him or lean on him as much as some of the other quarterbacks on this list either were leaned on or will be leaned on, I leave him just outside looking in. But obviously is still very important and a guy who definitely has more room to grow this year for BYU and probably needs to grow fairly significantly if BYU is going to have the same type of season this year if they want to win 10 games again. Okay. I'm cheating a little bit here at number 5 because I've got Chase Soule and Xavier Townsend, a couple of Iowa State wide receivers packaged together here. Understand why I'm doing this, okay? They are tasked with replacing, in large part, these two, replacing Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins, who were, for my money, about the best receiver tandem in the country. Just trying to think offhand, like who is next after Ryan Williams or Jeremiah Smith at Alabama and Ohio State. But Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel combined for 2,300 plus yards last year. That is an insane total. Tremendous season for those guys. They're phenomenal. And that's going to be a big hole for Iowa State to fill. Like I could have put Rocco Becht here in terms of him being one of the most important players, but like he's been so consistent and solid. I'm almost like, I expect him to be good. But for Iowa State's season to be what they want it to be, they need weapons to step up for him after he just lost the 2 go-to guys. So Chase Soule, who's an East Carolina transfer, Xavier Townsend, UCF fans know well, a UCF transfer. those guys are going to have to be it. Sol had 1,200 plus yards receiving the last 2 seasons at East Carolina. Townsend had that weird year last year where he sat out the last 8 games to maintain his eligibility, right? Very much a sign of the times. I know not a lot of people like that, but I do think he is very talented. So I'm putting them there on the list at number 5. Number 4, I told you, Utah fans, he was coming later on in the show and it was not that far away. Devin Dampier. I'm telling you, if you have not watched highlights of him, go watch highlights of him. Yes, the touchdown to interception ratio was not great. Completion percentage was just under 60%. There are things that need to be improved. You know, he's got to improve a bit as a passer. That would have been true whether he was at New Mexico or at Utah this upcoming year. But he does have big playability still with that arm. And he put up 2,750 passing yards and 1,150 rushing yards. Insane totals. The guy is an obscene athlete, and he had 31 touchdowns. Like, I don't care what league you're playing in, you can ball if those are the numbers that you're putting up. And he's that important because it's Utah. They should have, as they do most years, enough of a foundation on defense where that's going to be a pretty salty unit. You just need an offense that has a pulse. And for much of the year last year, Utah did not have an offense with a pulse. Get an offense with a pulse and a dynamic quarterback, that's going to be a huge difference maker and could absolutely vault Utah right into the thick of the Big 12 championship conversation. So much as sometimes I've taken part in clowning on Utah fans, you can't deny Kyle Whittingham and that program. They shouldn't have bet as much as they did on Cam Rising last year being healthy. Regardless, they've dealt with a lot of injury issues the last 2 years. I think this is poised for a bounce back year. I heard, by the way, Devin Dampier, I heard a Diego Pavia comp for him, which I found very interesting. Very, very intriguing. Diego Pavia. Great year at Vandy, man. Great year at Vandy. I think you'd take that. Number 3, Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson, K-State quarterback. Look, K-State's another school I think has legitimate Big 12 championship upside. And while the roster does have plenty of talent, Kleiman has done a good job of upgrading that slowly but surely over the last 3 years. You got to have more consistent quarterback play out of Avery Johnson or it's not going to matter. Last year, it was very boom or bust. I mean, there were some great moments, some great games, and then there were some total disasters. BYU chief among them. Everybody saw the meltdown that K-State had, offense in particular, and Avery in particular spearheading all of that. You also had a Houston game, where they suddenly can't score. They're turning it over in a driving rainstorm, and somehow you're finding yourself losing that game to Houston and removing yourself from the Big 12 title race. Can't have that anymore. K-State was 90th in the country last year in 3-and-out percentage. It's got to get better. They just have to be more consistent. That will start with Avery Johnson. Everybody is saying the right things. They say he's up to 200 pounds. He's bulked up and he's faster. He just hit 23 miles per hour, which was a big benchmark. There's a lot to like. He's got Heisman conversation upside, but it's a long ways away and it will take a lot of consistency. But he is the trigger man for a team that has a high upside, lofty expectations, and he has already built a reputation and name for himself, which I think is important here too, in terms of the importance to the Big 12 season. Number two, Sam Leavitt. Sam Leavitt, the quarterback I mentioned, who was picked 8th on the list of the 150 best players in college football by CBS Sports. Excellent last year, 24 TDs, 6 picks, 443 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. And he's going to be leading what I would say is going into the season, the most high-profile team in the Big 12. I think that's fair, right? I mean, I guess unless you're just going to say, hey, based on Coach Prime, Colorado. But Arizona State won the league last year. They damn near beat Texas. They were 1 play away from beating Texas in the college football playoff quarterfinals. They're going to have a ton of attention on them. Kenny Dillingham now becomes a darling as a 34-year-old head coach, just a wonderkind, doing what he is doing so far. And look, there's going to be a lot of attention focused on perhaps a Heisman campaign here early on for Sam Leavitt, and Arizona State being a team that will have a chance to generate a ton of respect throughout the year because they should start ranked in the top 25. They have everybody's respect that was earned in the postseason last year and with how they finished last year. This guy will be really important. If you believe that the Heisman is still important to a conference's prestige, which I do to an extent. I mean, I certainly think it was a nice feather in the cap to get the Heisman last year for the Big 12 with Travis Hunter. Sam Leavitt's the guy who's going to have the best shot because he will start in the conversation at the beginning of the year, which is a really important prerequisite there. It's tough to do the Johnny Manziel and just come totally out of nowhere and take it over. So Leavitt's got a shot to do that. But number one, Texas Tech fans, Behren Morton. I'm going to say Behren Morton is the most important player to the Big 12 season in 2025. And it's because of how much I think that could swing what Texas Tech is. And Texas Tech is, I would argue, the biggest story of the Big 12 offseason with what they did in the portal, putting together arguably the best portal class in the country, to the point where you've got SEC and Big Ten teams grumbling behind the scenes about how Tech was making players too expensive, basically, setting the market too high. That'll trickle down not just from the players that they're signing. Texas Tech has done what it needed to do to stock up this roster to make a big run and finally shatter this glass ceiling that's been there since Mike Leach left town. But they need at least good quarterback play, I will say, to fully realize their potential. I do realize that I said, hey, Shahan Jayaraja made a great point recently that guys who have won national championships lately, it has not been like these overwhelming generational talents at quarterback. This has not been Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, Tua. It's not been somebody like that. It has been the Will Howard, Stetson Bennett, like that kind of mold at quarterback, JJ McCarthy, where a lot of the other talent is doing the work for you. So I don't think it takes, a Cam Newton season from Behren Morton, but he's got to be pretty consistent and pretty solid to good. I would maybe move the bar to good if they're going to be a team that has the upside of like winning a game in the playoff, which I think the rest of the roster affords them that type of upside. We can at least start to have that conversation. Texas Tech probably has as much as anybody in the league just because of the talent they bought and plugged in all across the board on their roster. So that makes them very important. It will be an important narrative for the Big 12 this season. If the Big 12 proves you can go out and spend your way to a roster that can win a playoff game and do some real damage there, man, I mean, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. It may become a little more irrelevant if the House settlement will put a total kibosh on, basically the pay for play era. That'll bring everybody a little bit more even, but it might not. That's far from a guarantee. And so there is, I think, an importance to the league in making a statement like, hey, a Big 12 team, if you get the right guy, you get somebody, strike it big and become a multi-billionaire, like you can be all right here and you can go compete at basically any level that you want out of the Big 12, almost any level. Maybe not legit national championship contender, but you can get all the way to just a step or a half step below if Tech were to hit its ceiling this year. So Behren Morton, putting that on you, brother. Putting that on you. Most important player to the Big 12's 2025 season. You can all disagree. Light me up in the comments if you do. Just make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel while you are there.